Good morning, this is the Breville Barista Express BES870 in black. As you saw in the photos, I am selling this one. Been using it for a few days after I've done the service and the checkup. Wanted to use it for a few days to check everything, and the machine actually works really well. Of course it's a used machine, so it does have wear and tear, but it's honestly one of my cleaner machines. So it's mainly just a couple of nicks here on the front, not too many heavy scratches on the tray actually, a few scratches on the grill, a few nicks and dents on the back, but again, nothing atypical of this age. It's only a couple years old. Yeah, so in this video I'll be making a full coffee, grinding, brewing and steaming. We'll start with my usual warm-up procedure. So I like to warm up the machine when I first turn it on. You can either warm it up by just waiting, for example, turning it on and leaving it on for 10 or 20 minutes. It should be nice and warm, especially if you have your portafilter on. The portafilter will also get warm. I like to warm it up in another way, actively. So I like to run some hot water through the handle into the cup. That's going to warm up all of those three. In the meantime, I can get my milk. So I'm going to fill the jug. This is my jug. I'm going to fill it about halfway with cold full cream milk. And then, well, I'm sure you'll soon. You can do one or two blank shots, it's up to you. Both buttons work fine and they're actually programmable. So this will give you about 100 mils of water. This is going to give you about 60 mils of water. When you make coffee, it's different volumes just because the coffee will give resistance to the pump. So you have to adjust the buttons to your liking with coffee in the handle and not just with hot water itself. I'm going to get this out and dry it. So the machine comes with only the basic accessories that you need to make coffee. So just the portafilter, the double basket and the tamper. This double basket takes 18 grams of ground coffee. And I've set up the grinder to give us 17 grams. Sorry, I've set up the grinder at grind size number 3. So it should be roughly in the right ballpark for the extraction speed. Basically, the grind size will affect how quickly your coffee will flow, and that will change how your coffee will taste. So if I use a very fine grind size, so if I go all the way down to 1, not recommended by the way, but if I go all the way down to 1, the coffee will be very finely ground, almost like flour. And then when I make this shot, the coffee will extract very slowly because it's so finely ground. So it'll extract slowly, will get too high over pressure, and the coffee will come out in drips, and it'll taste a little bit strong. You may like that, but I wouldn't recommend it if it's your first time using the machine. On the other hand, if you use a very large grind size, if I go all the way to 10, make a coffee there, the coffee will flow too quick, the pressure won't be high, the crema won't be thick, and the shot will finish in only 10 seconds, which is too quick. So we usually aim for a double shot in about 25 seconds, and the output is usually about 35-40 grams, let's call it 40. So 40 grams in 25 seconds is the rule. If the grind size is too fine, it'll take more than 25 seconds to give you 36 grams. If the grind size is too coarse, it'll take less than 25 seconds to give you the 40 gram dose. So that's how I arrived at the that's how I arrived at the grind size number 3. I just did a bit of trial and error, and number 3 was okay. Now the beans are a bit old. I am using the last bit of my bag of beans. I think it was the Coles brand. Not the best brand. Usually I would recommend Aldi for the beginners, or if you want something more special, go to your roaster nearby and buy the coffee fresh from there. So this is I think 18.5 grams, so it should give us enough coffee for one double shot, which is, like I said, 18 grams. So actually I'm not going to use my dosing cup, I'll just use the portafilter to show you how you can do it without any accessories. So you've got grind size, we've already spoke about that. You've got the grind amount. This will dictate how long it'll grind for and how much you get in the handle, of course. You can double it by clicking the double. I like to put it on single and do it in 2 steps. That's to prevent any mess. So we've got a scale. I've got a scale here just to measure the input and output. I would recommend, if you don't have one, get one. So I'll start with 12 o'clock and see how much that gives me. That was quick. Let's see. It should be 9 grams, and if it's small. So that's 7.5. So I'll increase it to about 2 o'clock. So hopefully the 2 o'clock position should give us closer to 9 grams. Now, what I like to do is, usually I would press it lightly to make space for the next shot, and then grind again. So 16.5. So that's basically 9 grams. So at the 2 o'clock position, it'll roughly give you 9 grams. Do test this with your own beans. Now this is what's happening with my own beans. In your case, it may vary a little bit, so do measure it and check. So this is 16.5, and then if you keep it running, it'll give us the perfect 18 gram. 17.9. Perfect. Once you have your coffee ground, before you press it, just distribute it lightly with your finger. So I'm going to make sure it's roughly flat before I press it with my tamper. And then I'll grab the tamper. You can put it on the counter. You can just press it mid-air. It's up to you. And then make sure it's nice and flat and it's not wonky to one side or the other. If you don't have a scale, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you do one of 2 things. Either when you grind, before you press the coffee, it should be level, so sort of level with the rim, which is what you saw before when I was flattening it with my finger. It's level. And then after you press, you can also check. This silver part should disappear. So this is what's happening now. We have got basically exactly 18 grams. And the silver part on the tamper disappears when we have it pressed down. And that's like a nice little quick way to tell that you have the right amount of coffee, if the silver part disappears. If it's not disappearing, if it's all the way up here, even after you press hard, the silver part, you can still see it, that's too much coffee. And also if the tamper is too deep, it's too deep into the portafilter and it's like this way, this much deep, it's too little coffee. So maybe try it with these settings, number 3, 2 o'clock, single, and doing it twice. Sounds a little bit hard in the beginning if this is your first coffee machine, but trust me, it'll get easier the more you do it, and it'll become second nature, like it is with me. So this is the perfect amount of coffee. We'll lock it in. We'll get my cup. Get rid of the hot water that we added in the beginning. You've also got a hot water tap if you want to turn this espresso into a long black Americano. Use a bit of hot water. You can also use it obviously for tea bags and other stuff. I like to add a little bit of sugar to my coffee. Surprise, surprise. And this hot water tap helps me because it gives me a little bit of, just a touch of water that I want without being contaminated by the coffee in the group head. So if you take the handle out and you extract some hot water, it'll be hot water, but it may have a little bit of ground coffee because you're flushing the group head as you are extracting the hot water. So if you want pure, clean hot water, the hot water tap is where you're at. Awesome. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is the output. So we discussed a few things. We discussed the input being 18 grams of beans or 18 grams of coffee. We discussed grind size. You know, increasing a larger number on the grind size will mean a larger speed of flow. Smaller will mean smaller speed of flow or smaller pressure. Sorry. Yeah. So smaller number, think of it as slower speed. We also discussed grain amount. The last thing is to discuss the output. So the input we put 18, we want to double it. Like I said, it should be about 36 to 40 grams and it should take 25 seconds. And we discussed what happens if it's too fast or too fine. Sorry, if it's too fast or too slow, we adjust the grind size. These buttons are a bit too long for my liking from factory, so I like to change them a little bit. Mainly the double one is the one I use the most. I'll change that for you. I haven't changed it for myself because I've been extracting manually in the past week. But basically, to change the amount of coffee dispensed, grind the coffee, lock in the handle, put your cup underneath, of course. Then press program. Then press the button you want to program. The machine will make coffee. Press it again when you're happy with the volume. So I'm going to pull my scale underneath actually, if it fits. Yep, it fits. And I'm going to start a timer. So we'll see how long the 36 gram or the 40 gram dose takes. Have a look at the pressure gauge. Should be about 12 o'clock. It's about 11 o'clock now, which is actually pretty good. 20 grams now. 30. This is 40 grams in 23 seconds. Not too bad. Actually pretty good. I'm not gonna be very critical. If it happened in 25 seconds or 30 seconds, that would have been better. So I could either get better beans. My beans are a bit old, so they will be runny when they're older or cheaper beans. Keep that in mind. If it's really runny and you're not getting crema and the coffee's flowing too quickly, most likely the beans. Sorry, very likely to be the beans. So do make sure you get good quality beans. So we got about 40 grams in 23 seconds. I'm very happy with that. It's got really good crema. The flow is nice and symmetrical out of both spouts. And yeah, I think I'll leave the settings there for you to use. Get your own beans, try it at these settings with a double shot, sorry. And yeah, you can measure the output. And if you're happy with the amount, or you can just go by taste, if it tastes good. That's all that matters, the number's not really important. It's all about taste. If you make coffee with these settings and you're happy with the taste, keep them. Just keep in mind that some beans taste better at different ratios. So some beans taste better really strong at 30 grams extraction. Some beans taste better at 50. So I guess just get your own beans, compare the taste as well. And then stick with a brand of beans if you want that. Stick with the settings and you'll be happy. Get rid of this. Next is steaming. So after I've extracted my espresso, I'm going to add some, obviously, to make this into a latte, I'm going to add some hot milk. We have to steam it. If you haven't learned the technique, there's heaps of YouTube videos that can teach you better than I can. But basically, the basic idea is fill this about halfway with water. This is my personal jug. It's got a thermometer, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use feel to judge how hot it is. Halfway with cold milk, turn on the steamer. It'll take about 10 seconds to start steaming. Once it does, turn it off, position the jug, turn it back on. The positioning is, you keep the jug at an angle, sort of this way. You keep the tip close to the surface and close to the edge of the milk so that it's spinning the milk as it's steaming. Turn it off, turn it back on. The closer you are to the surface, the more froth you'll give it, the more thicker your milk will be. So if you don't want a really thick foam, you want it to be nice and smooth, maybe only hold it close to the surface for the first 10 seconds or so. And then after that, you can raise the jug to prevent any more aeration or any more frothing. And now it's just spinning the milk, heating it up. Getting hotter and hotter. When it's too hot to the touch, I'll turn it off. So just there. And then let it out, give it a quick purge. And now the machine will cool down. It'll purge some water to cool down the boiler. That's basically it. Just make sure you give the outside of the wand a good wipe with some wet cloth. Tissues alone won't help. And the sooner you do that, the better, just because it's going to dry out over time. A little life hack I'll give you. It's a bit messy, but just use some hot water. That'll soften the milk. And then grab your towel and cleans off very easily. And like I said, the sooner you do it, the easier, because it will be nice and fresh. Otherwise, it'll dry and form sort of a crust that's really hard to remove. And that's it. That's the latte all done. If you want to be super nice to your machine, do what I did before. Give it a flush after you're done. Clean the portafilter, which is already done in my case. Give it a good wipe to clean the seal, clean the shower screen. There's a bit of remnants almost always, even after flushing. And keep it nice and dry all around. And it'll last you many years, especially after the fact that it's been recently serviced. So the milk is a bit thick. I might call this a cappuccino rather than a latte. Latte usually has a bit more flatter milk. But it looks really good, that's what matters. It's probably going to taste really good. If you do some practice, you can do latte art. I'm not very skilled, I'm not very dexterous. So, no latte art for me today. But at least the coffee looks really good. Some good froth, good crema. And I'm sure you can do better coffees than me. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. And hope you enjoy the machine. See you soon.